A couple days ago, I started my 17th and hopefully last lab notebook of my PhD research, and yesterday I ran my 746th STS page gel. I'm not saying this in any way to brag, but rather to show that grad school is a lot of work, and so if you're thinking about grad school, you want to make sure that you really want to do research, and when you apply to grad school, they're going to want to make sure that you want to do research too, and that you know what it involves, and that it involves a lot of failure and stuff, and that you're okay with that. So my biggest advice for people who are interested in applying to grad school is first to try to get as much research experience as you can as early as possible, such as even if it's just like volunteering or shadowing in a lab, and then getting a position in a lab, or doing summer research opportunities. There's a whole bunch of ways to get involved. Then my advice for when you're actually applying is to show them that you know that what you were doing and why. Sorry, wait, steps over, be right back. And I don't have a behind the scenes into the application, like the officers or whatever that are looking over the papers, but I've talked to people who are on like the admissions panels, and also I've read over a bunch of people's statements and that sort of thing. And the biggest problem, or the biggest not error, but just criticism, or the biggest, it's not like an error, but just the weakest thing, is that people will just describe the research that they've done in very like matter-of-fact ways, like I did this, this, and this. And they won't connect it to why you did this, this, and this. And what would be next? What was the broader implications, even if there aren't very, like, huge, just little things. And how does this fit, like what would be your next steps if you were to continue on this research and that sort of thing. Those are really important things as a scientist, and they want to see like that means that you're thinking like a scientist, and they want to you want to show them that you can think like a scientist, because they can train you all the techniques. They can train you all of the like formulas and equations and everything. But it's really important that you have a strong scientific mindset. And this is something that you can develop with getting research experience when you're still like an undergraduate or after you graduate. A great way to get some experience is by like working in a lab as a lab technician or laboratory assistant. There are lots of people do that, and that's a really great way to either just get more experience or to make sure that you really like doing research. So maybe you didn't have opportunities in undergrad to do as much research as you would have liked, and so you really want to test it out. And so I encourage you to like search the job boards and stuff, and just talk, like look in like local schools and that sort of thing if anybody's hiring. For research opportunities over the summer, I suggest Googling it. I don't have any like specific knowledge or whatever, but if there's a school that you know that you're interested in like potentially going to, or even not even going to, but just like maybe it's a school nearby, maybe it's a school that you just think is really cool, just look on their website, see if they have a summer research program for people that are from outside. There's a ton of great ways to get involved. I just don't know them off the top of my head. So when I said make sure you want to do research, I don't mean that you have to have that as your like end goal. So there are lots of things you can do with a PhD, not just research. You can do things like go into policy, go into law, writing. There are tons of fields that need good, well-trained scientists. But at least for the next like 5 to 7 years or so, you're going to have to do research in order to get your PhD. And so you want to make sure that you're going to be happy with it. That's all I meant by that. But when you're applying to grad school, they are not just looking for like a star student. What they want to see is someone who is curious, someone who is passionate, someone who has a scientific mindset, can critically think, can evaluate, can be creative. Science is very creative, where it's often seen as like science is strictly facts. But in order to find those facts, you have to be creative about coming up with experiments and different ways to find the answer. So there's a lot of creativity that goes into it. So if you're thinking about grad school and you're concerned, maybe you don't have the best grades, maybe you haven't done the best on tests and stuff, that is not going to determine whether you can be a good scientist. Science is so much more about being able to think critically, being able to experiment, not being able to memorize formulas and equations. And so I don't have a behind the scenes look at the admissions office or anything like that. But I've gotten the impression that like grades and stuff, they can get you kind of like through an initial screen. But then they really look at those, like your statements of purpose, and your research statements. So describing the research that you've done. So typically you have like a research statement, describing the research that you've done, and then you have like a personal statement. And so it's really important that in these statements, you show that you make yourself stand out. And the way that you want to make yourself stand out is by showing them that you have the passion for research. You know what is entailed, and you are cool with that. Like, a lot of times, when I was in grad school, like interviews and stuff, I would get the impression that they get a lot of people who they just go to grad school because they're not really sure what's next. I mean, they've been in school their whole life, and so the next step is grad school, right? Even if that's not really what they have a passion for. And so you want to show them that you're not just that type of person, like you're actually passionate about it. Plus, you want to make sure for yourself that you're passionate about it, because you don't want to be spending like the 6 years or so of your life miserable. That would not be good. And so you want to really get this research experience, and then you want to show them that you did it not just to have experience to put on your resume, but because you wanted to try it out. You wanted to do it. Like, and so you should show that you're passionate about the research that you did too. So even if it's tiny little research that is like makes barely a mark in the science records, like no, not even published, like nothing, except like it helped like your lab advance or something, that you can be excited about that, be happy for those little wins, and talk about how you overcame difficulties in your research. Maybe you were trying to clone something and it just wasn't working, and you figured out why it wasn't working, and you got it cloned. Maybe you even had to reach out to other labs and then figure out why it wasn't. You want to tell them these things. Tell them, like, even if you don't have these grand results, show them that you're able to go through the scientific process, that you're able to troubleshoot. That's like 90% of grad school is troubleshooting and optimizing and stuff. So you want to show them that you know how to do this. Like, I mean, you don't have to know everything, obviously. Like, grad school is for teaching you, but you want to show that you have at least some knowledge of what is required to be a scientist and what's going to be expected, and that you can take those downs, and you're not just like a lot of people who apply to grad school say, if they're one of those people that is very overachieving, they might be used to getting like all A's or getting everything working all the time, and that's not how science works. And so they want to make sure that you know that too, and that you're going to be okay with that. And they want to see that you have this passion, that you are willing to find the answers, and critically, you are able to know why you're doing what you're doing and what the implications are. So even if those implications are tiny, you want to be able to show that you can know how your research fits into the broader research environment, and that you're not just following instructions because, like, oh, my advisor said to do this, 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 and this, so I did this, 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 and this, and this. Oh, another thing. So I was super worried, like, when I was an undergrad, that my research I didn't have any publications, and I was, like, terrified that was going to keep me from getting in anywhere. And it was totally fine not to have publications. Like, honestly, some people have, like, publications just because they were, like, working in a lab that they did a little tiny thing for the project, and so everyone in that project has like a paper published, and maybe that's a lab that publishes a lot, and like, so it's really not, publications are not like the most important thing when you're applying to grad school. I didn't have any publications. I still don't have any publications, but having the so you don't have to worry about the publications part, and don't feel bad if you don't have any publications, like seriously. It's great if you can do like a poster presentation or that sort of thing, even if it's just at your school. Those things can really help show that you have some experience communicating your science with others, but don't worry about having the actual publication. Another really important thing when it comes to applications is you want to have people that can give you strong letters of recommendation. So it's really great if if you have to get like research experience, like if you're working in someone's lab on campus or whatever, and then you can get a close relationship with that person and have them write a really strong letter of recommendation for you. So the biggest advice that I have for people is get research experience, and then show the panel or show the people reading your papers and all of that you have this research experience, that you can know why, that you don't just have this research experience, but you own your research experience. Like, I did this because of this. I did this. This is why, I know why I did this, and I know what I would do next. I know how it fits into other things. You don't have to know everything. You're going to school, remember? Like, they're supposed to teach you stuff, and they do teach you stuff, but you want to show them, like, yeah, I can already think like a scientist. I can think like a scientist, and I can learn the rest of it, and I'm eager to learn the rest of it, and I'm ready to do research for at least for the next 6 or so years. And so, yeah, so then you can, once you get your PhD, you can do a bunch of other things, but in order to get your PhD, you have to do that original research. And so that's why it's really important that you have a desire for it, and so you think it's fun to come in and do research. And yeah, so there's definitely ups and downs and days and stuff, and so I have posts on that and stuff I can point you to. I can provide some links, but really, I really have loved my grad school experience, and I'm excited for my next steps. So this post is actually part of me answering questions that people had asked me through the IMBUB's like Ask Bree thing. And so I got a lot of questions about applying to graduate school, and so just a shout out to Anubab, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Gabby, Akil, Shubishka, and anonymous person. Oh, and kind of Lexi, but not enough. So basically I'm going to I will do a couple posts kind of answering questions related to broader themes that people asked, and then I plan to do like a written version where I'm answering people's like specific questions, and have that all in writing. So hope that works for people. And I have way more grad school related posts on my blog, things from like interviews, and then things along the way in grad school, all the way through to the thesis and stuff. So I will post a link to that and hope that can help people.